I actually wanted to have a part of my last video covering my experience with Avatar The Last Airbender, but that video was getting pretty damn long. Hell, much longer than I intended. I was going to mention how while I didn't necessarily grow up with it, considering how I only watched season 1 while it was airing as a kid, I can still say that I enjoy it today. I have no doubt my younger self would have loved the show in its entirety, but my experience in the Avatar world is probably different from most. I don't like doing this because I know what usually happens when you compare two things, especially when those two things are from a shared universe. But this isn't meant to be an Avatar The Last Airbender versus the Legend of Korra video. So please, let me just explain myself.
No, you don't!
You see, after years of not watching seasons 2 or 3 of Avatar The Last Airbender, only seeing pieces when I'd go over to my grandparents' house and turn on Nickelodeon and somehow manage to get lucky, I didn't have that same issue watching The Legend of Korra. I was able to watch Korra during high school and college as it aired. So, this is the part where I rip off the band-aid and say, yes, Avatar The Last Airbender is definitely the better show from top to bottom. I know that's how the majority feels, at least. It's a more consistent show, I can't deny that. But with that being said, I still like Korra a teeny tiny bit more. And despite me liking it a bit more, I can still admit that it has lower lows than its predecessor. Seriously, I won't even pretend to deny that. But the highs, on the other hand, in my humble opinion, are higher than Avatar The Last Airbender's. I'm sure some Avatar fans heard what I just said and I got their blood boiling, but hear me out. I don't have a sense of nostalgia for Korra, so I don't think I'm being biased or coming to viewers with a fanboy perspective, and if for some reason you think that, fuck you. No, just kidding. This space is a safe space for freedom of thought, unless you're an Ava fan. Going off of my most recent memories, when I rewatched Korra over a year ago, I remembered that the fight choreography was great, Korra's character development was nice, and the antagonists of the show were dope. I realize that it's a bit early for a tangent, but I'm a sucker for well done antagonists, man. From their dynamic with the protagonist and the main cast, to their difference in ideologies, to the presence they command, to their aura, as people who are chronically online would say, as well as the parallels to the protagonist. Seriously, I could go on. Now, because stories tend to usually follow heroes, I tend to cling more to the more morally ambiguous characters or straight up villainous characters in a story. A well-written antagonist usually charts up higher than a well-written protagonist. At least for me. Don't ask why I'm wired this way. I've been like this since I was a kid. I thought Slade from Teen Titans was amazing. I thought Vlad from Danny Phantom was great. Shigo from Kim Possible was goated. I wonder why I possibly could have thought that. Can't seem to put my finger on it though. Anyway, The Legend of Korra has better antagonists than The Last Airbender. To me. I already hear The Last Airbender fans saying Azula and Zuko before he switched sides, like he was fucking Kevin Durant. And hey, they're both strong antagonists for the story, but I lean more towards Korra's antagonist than The Last Airbender's. Amon, Zahir, and his entire squad were straight problems. And Kuvira, who I thought was still pretty good. I'm sure some would point out that I didn't mention Ozai. Yeah, I didn't. The man doesn't have much screen time. Everything you know about him you are told and not shown. The man is tucked away pretty much until the final episodes of The Last Airbender. I prefer my antagonists to be out in the field, putting in work, or even talking some shit and flexing their brain or muscles before the final showdown. And Ozai isn't that.
I'm not him. Jethro.
Yeah, as a big bad, when he finally has to show out, he puts in work against Aang, and they have an epic duel. But as for character, Ozai might as well have been a twirling mustache monster of the week villain from the Power Rangers. A bit much maybe, but that is my honest feeling on the guy. To shoot Ozai some bail though, I don't demand that all villains or antagonists need to have depth. I'm fine with some of them being evil or immoral just because. To me, Ozai is nothing more than a force of nature. Azula, on the other hand, what can I say? She's dope, from her screen presence, her skills, her capability of getting shit done, her dynamic with Zuko, and her spiraling at the end of the show. It's all amazing.
I'm not him, Afro.
If you want some more Azula praising, you could find hundreds of videos on YouTube. You probably won't have to look too far. On to Korra's antagonist, Amon, Zahir, as well as Kuvira. They all have depth to them. Amon is secretly a bender who uses his bending to take away other benders' ability to bend. And he wishes to create equality. The man was able to bloodbend, the most terrifying and most OP bending in all of Avatar, making him a pretty deadly threat. Amon is a bit extreme by taking away a part of someone's identity and removing their agency to choose, but he wasn't out there bodying people like Zahir and the squad. The Red Lotus's job was to retrieve the Avatar, force them to go into the Avatar state and kill them so that the Avatar cycle would end. Zahir straight up murked the Earth Queen. It's also impressive how a man who never had airbending a day in his life woke up one day and had the ability to bend air and utilized it to complement his martial arts. Man had skill, yo. Capable squad and was an anarchist. Not to mention he traumatized Korra, something that carries over into the final season. Yo, when an antagonist is able to live rent-free in a protagonist's head, even after they've been defeated, they've succeeded as an elite adversary. And lastly, we have Kuvira. She was a straight-up dictator who might have started with noble intentions, but allowed power to corrupt her. Out of the 4 seasons, she and Unalaq tend to be the least favorite of the viewers. While I'd rather not get into Unalaq, Kuvira was a solid antagonist, especially for Korra to go up against given her state after what Zahir did to her. Kuvira even helped put a nice bow at the end of Korra's character arc. Kuvira was a skilled metal bender. You get the dynamic between her and Sue with Kuvira's betrayal to Sue's family and why she used Sue's refusal to unite the Earth Kingdom as an opportunity to do it herself. Shit, Kuvira dead went toe to toe with Korra while her army watched, saying she will not ask any of them to do something she herself wasn't prepared to do. Lady got her hands dirty and prevailed. You gotta respect an antagonist who has a big ass army or a shitload of henchmen but says, back the fuck up, I got this shit. And to top it all off, she was ruthless, willing to kill her husband and others so that she could rule with no opposition. She was even more extreme than Zahir. So, in case you weren't listening, they are my top 3 antagonists in the Avatar world. Let me say that I'm not some Dragon Ball Z power scaler and be like, yo, Korra's ops were stronger than Aang's. I don't care. Even though I do agree with that view that Korra does have stronger antagonists. It doesn't matter to me. Just like how it doesn't matter that Korra kept losing and getting her ass kicked. Some may call me delusional, but there's something about failure that is a form of art. To win it out the gate isn't as satisfying as winning it after facing some hurdles. Maybe that's the LeBron James fan in me talking, but I'm fine with the protagonists who keep taking L's, because at the end of the day, they're usually going to persevere. But to me, it's not a matter of when they'll persevere, it's how they'll persevere. Again, my intentions aren't to cause a divide or start a war. I'm just stating my opinion. I enjoy Korra more as a character than Aang. There, I said it. While Iroh, Zuko, and Sokka and Toph are some of my favorite characters in the show, Aang was probably my least favorite character. But even then, I'd be lying to say that he was boring or had no layers. In The Last Airbender, he is the last air nomad. He's a little kid who is tasked with stopping the Fire Nation. At times, as expected, he acts like a kid, and at other times, he acts wise, recalling the wisdom of his older friend. And it's a type of wisdom you don't even see often in adults. Despite all of that, I like Korra's character more. I enjoy her story more. A prodigy who gets humbled when she has to learn airbending, a person who's stubborn, hot-headed, and quick to throw hands, are probably all traits and flaws that would make people find her annoying. And I'd agree if she remained stagnant the entire show, but she doesn't. Now, antagonists aside, I love Korra's, Lin's, and Tenzin's characters the most. I know fans love The Last Airbender characters more, and that's fine. I feel the writing for character arcs are more developed and better executed in The Last Airbender. But I don't think Korra's main cast is as bad as many others make it out to be. It's just not nearly as good. I'm not here to power scale trauma or investigate who had a more difficult journey. As I've said before, that doesn't really matter to me. I also know that Korra having the story change from season to season, instead of it just having one big clear cut big bad to take down at the end of the day, is sort of seen as a negative. If you feel that way, that's okay too. It doesn't bother me, especially if new elements are being introduced to the story. Despite my issues with Season 2, it did flesh out the Avatar's origin a bit, which I thought was cool, and it was nice seeing the consequences from Season 2 being felt throughout all the way to the end of the story. I feel like the biggest reason I like The Legend of Korra more, despite the antagonist, is Korra herself. In no way is this a shot, but Aang's progression from Book 1 to Book 3 felt kinda mild. I can't really explain why, but I always got the feeling that Aang just needed a little push and motivation along the way. I mean, shit, don't we all? The flaws just didn't jump off the screen and shout as loud as Korra's did. Korra's progression seemed more apparent to me. Again, that's not to say Aang didn't have development over the show, but it just wasn't as much as Korra's, not to me at least. If I had to compare Aang and Korra from the beginning of their stories and compare them to themselves at the end of it, Korra in episode 1 looks a lot different in the light compared to Korra at the end of the series. To me, it isn't even close. And while I'm never one who needs to relate to a character to enjoy a show, I did find Korra more relatable. You know what? Let me further indulge the idea that Avatar The Last Airbender was a more cohesive story. Let's say the showrunner of The Legend of Korra knew straight out the gate that they were going to have multiple seasons, or at least enough time to properly plan out an extended story. Also, I'm gonna make it so that Amon is the big bad of the show. You see, I'm a bit of a writer myself, so let me see if I could have made it work a little. I'd have the beginning of the show mirroring Book 1, for the most part. Maybe remove the love triangle, probably because I'm older and teenage angst has my eyes rolling into the back of my head. Oh, small tangent. But I would love to have more animated shows, anime in particular, to have more adult slice of life series, man. Shout out to Wotakoi. I'll just show a picture. It's basically a rom-com with a young adult cast, and it's such a breath of fresh air, man. While most of these shows take place in high schools because these shows are targeted to a younger demographic, it would be nice to have a more aged up cast every now and then. I'm not saying they have to be in their 40s and 50s, but a nice, mid-20s to early 30s can't hurt. A slice of life with well-done drama and the occasional sprinkle of Sakuga, like a Frieren or Miss Kobayashi, for some hyped scenes would slap. Okay, I'm done. Back to Korra. I might have Bolin already in a relationship and Mako single until he meets Asami like he originally did. Korra could see Mako and be smitten at first, then immediately lose that attraction the second he opens his mouth to say some smart ass shit and ends Korako? Makara? Did Korra and Mako ever have a ship name? Anyway, that ship sinks before it could even sail. Okay, so from that point, the story continues the same way. Equalists lurking in the shadows, Amon giving his Amon rallies the gospel they love. I thought all of that was some solid shit, so I'm keeping it. I'm keeping Korra exposing Amon as Noatak, as well as him being a water and bloodbender. They have their encounter, Amon takes away Korra's bending, and to save Mako, she finally unlocks her ability to airbend. Amon gets his ass tossed out the window, he's forced to waterbend in public for people to see. All of that's pretty good stuff. Now this is where I would change a few things going forward. Amon never releases his brother. Instead, I'd make him go low for a little bit and wait for Korra to be all alone, and then he attacks her, no longer even needing his mask since he's exposed. Now he is simply Noatak. I'd have the scene raining, and Korra being all alone, sad, lost, all of her connection to the elements, no Aang to swoop in and restore her avatar state to give that original season 1 happy ending. Nope, none of that's gonna happen over here. I'd make Noatak a nasty martial artist similar to Zahir, and have him actually start bending the rain in this fight, and completely stomp Korra. He'd restrain her with his bloodbending, and for a second he nearly crosses the line. I'm not saying the show has to go completely dark and show Noatak giving her a heart attack, but maybe show the light in her eyes going out for a little bit, right before he reels himself back in. After all, he never intended to make Korra a martyr. So after stopping himself, he probably kneels down on a terrified Korra and tells her that she simply delayed his plans to season 2, or just going forward. Korra has some PTSD she has to work out. I kinda wanna have it similar to her fight with Zahir that left her in ruins. This season though, no longer having connection to the past avatars, only being able to airbend, I'd have Korra get a deep connection to her spiritual side. First doing it for the sake of being whole again, but ultimately, over the course of the season, she does it to better herself. Gradually, we'll see the hot-headed Korra slowly mellow out. She changes her jump-in, guns-blazing attitude she originally had in the beginning of the first season, but becomes someone who is willing to stop and think, even willing to find another path over violence. I know some people are like, man, what the fuck is this Dorfin no violence bullshit? Okay, relax. Also, while I said I'm a bit of a writer, I never said I was a good one. Anyway, I want to slowly plant the seeds of growth we don't fully see sprout until the 4th season. I also know a show about the Avatar not being an Avatar might turn some people off. Oh well, despite all of that, this section of the show will focus on Korra's doubt of being the Avatar, her failure against handling Amon, or Noatak now, how she can't unite the masses, her lost connection with the previous avatars, and simply feeling lost. All of that while going on her spiritual journey. And yes, she eventually regains her connections with the previous avatars and her avatar state. Happy now? Now, I'm fine with Jinora being an OP spiritual person, but I'm not putting her into any positions where she's constantly being used as a get-out-of-jail-free card to save the day. If anything, she'll help assist Korra on her spiritual connection. I love Tenzin's character arc of never actually having gone into the spiritual world and seeing how naturally it comes to his daughter, so I'm keeping that as well, along with his dynamic with Bumi and Kaya. Bolin could still be on his mover star phase at this point, along with Varric's help. Somehow, I would tie Varric to Hiroshi Sato and Noatak. At this point, Varric is no longer in a working business relationship with them because he's no longer producing mechs and equipment, and he's not profiting off of any of it anymore, or something in that realm. Now, plot twist! Even though I've heard this originally being an idea for book 1, or maybe it was a theory while it was originally airing, I'd have Asami be exposed as an equalist. Yeah, Varric would finally come face to face with her again, having never been sure of what happened to her after her father went down. But before I get ahead of myself, I'd have Mako and Asami continuing on with their perfect relationship, Mako going on to joining the police force, which is why he never had the time to see Bolin on set, or Varric for that matter, nor would Asami, cause she's busy doing her own thing, and she's tied more to Mako's story. Basically anything to keep Varric separated for Asami. Now, Asami this whole time is feeding info to Noatak about Korra's spiritual journey, how she's regained her connection to the Avatar state, all while he continues to build his new army of equalists outside of Republic City, and it's all with people who don't care that he himself is a waterbender. I'd even have an equalist mention how if they rid every bender of their bending, Noatak would be the only one left, and how he shouldn't be trusted. Then I'd have someone electrocute him, followed by everyone kneeling in unison to Noatak, showing their loyalty to him nonetheless. In the midst of all of this, there is still divisions with benders and non-benders. Non-benders are becoming more rebellious with more violent outbursts. Korra has to navigate these waters while dealing with the situation with a cooler head. Now, going back to Asami, after Varric exposes her at a premiere mover, since he's no longer working with her father, Asami pieces up Mako and Bolin, man, on some cold, chi-blocking shit, and then she dips to reunite with Noatak and his forces. I'd have the leaders of each nation present as they have a talk with President Raiko about the Equalist movement's silent expansion. Then BAM! Noatak pulls up and slams his dick on the table. Oh yeah, he has all of this televised, by the way. Right as he's about to line up each leader and go down the line taking away all of their bending, Korra shows up, and with obvious hesitation because Noatak nearly ending her, but with her avatar mojo back, she stops Noatak from taking anyone's bending, goes into the avatar state, even breaking out of him bloodbending her. But because of the large number of equalists that he carried along with himself, Noatak is able to get away. Now, with equalists moving in the shadows like cheese and lasagna, attacking Korra as she's out trying to stop the chaos that has ensued. Lin, who has her bending back since Korra restored it, offers to take her to the city of Zaofu, even though she herself isn't 100% on the idea, given how wide Noatak's reach is gone. Anyway, Lin reunites with her sister, and then Lin can still have her character arc, with her burying the hatchet with her sister, because, well, I really enjoyed that aspect in book 3, because I really love Lin. Now, with Noatak's reach growing and growing, he eventually receives intel on Korra's whereabouts. Okay, so this is where I'm supposed to provide a solution to all of this chaos. So here's my half-baked attempt. Covert forces are rounding up and taking equalists off the streets. Each nation have been silently fending off the equalists. Varric helps by going back to producing mechs and equipment to help combat the equalists, giving non-benders who view Noatak and the equalists as extremists, and give them a chance to fight back instead of leaving everything to the benders. To make this timeline a bit more believable, given how much time has passed, I'm also gonna suggest that Varric has some storage place where he has extra, equipment and mechs ready to go. Now, of course, Varric sells his productions to each nation, benefiting off of the war that has been going on. A true capitalist. Asami and Mako get a duke it out. I don't see the point in making her sympathetic at the last moment, but instead show Mako's hurt from being played, forced to stop someone he thought he loved. Hell, he could even pull up at the final showdown when Korra faces Noatak, and provides a split second of distraction. Really, anything to help give Korra an edge, because in order to make the fight believable, I can't have Korra constantly breaking through Noatak's ability to bloodbend her. She has to show signs of wearing down a bit. After all, Noatak is the big bad of this show. I have no issue buffing him up, even being leagues ahead of his father. Now, of course, in the ending, Korra takes away his bending, but I've also had the Equalist still show up to provide another escape route for Noatak. But this time, it's his brother, Tarlok. He's there with his non-bending ass self. Noatak, without his bending, is still adamant of his movement and stopping the Avatar at any cost. But this time, opposed to all the other times, he's pissed off. In the end though, he's thankful for his brother's rescue. And this is where I'd insert the double kill ending the original book 1 had, where Tarlok ends both of them in an accident after seeing the damage Noatak's movement has created on all the nations and seeing his angry obsession that was developing, similar to that but drove their father into making both of them who they were. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Now, does my change in the story have holes and issues or things that just don't make any sense? Yes, they do. And if anyone cares enough to comment, I'm sure they'll tell me all of them. I literally did the groundwork of this during a lunch break and a ride back home. So kill me with kindness, or not, the choice is yours. I wanted to see if one big bad through the runtime of The Legend of Korra would work if that big bad was only Amon. It definitely could work, having Amon as the overarching antagonist, and would be better than a one and done antagonist. I'm 1000% sure someone or a team could come up with something way better than I did, but would I ultimately rather this route opposed to what we got to make it similar to Avatar The Last Airbender, with Ozai and the Fire Nation being the big bad, opposed to multiple seasons with different antagonists? I honestly don't know. As I've stated earlier, I'm fine with The Legend of Korra having a new thread for each book and building off of it. Though I do wish that the Equalist didn't completely disappear after book 1, even if the show was just supposed to have 1 season. I'm not saying another Amon needed to arrive, but typically a movement doesn't die if the head of its operation is cut off. Sometimes there's a scramble for power, factions break off, and people go off to be lone wolves and still hold on to those ideologies. But this isn't a my issues with The Legend of Korra video. There's enough of those out there. I know there's a lot of channels dedicated to what if scenarios and even revising shows that they straight up hate, or even sections of a show that they enjoy, just to help improve the show a bit more. Sure, it might have helped viewing a couple videos, watching people revise The Legend of Korra, and taking pieces that I thought worked and revising on pieces that I didn't think would work. But again, this was a last minute addition, even though this large section of the video might say otherwise. But for some reason, if you managed to make it this far on this long ass video, I hope you have a great day. Till next time.